A person wearing a light-colored shirt and ranger hat stands at a wooden podium on a small stage, speaking to an audience seated in blue chairs. A banner behind them lists multiple federal agencies and organizations.
The introduction at the top of the hour, but for those of you who weren't here, welcome to the Tent of Many Voices in the core of Discovery 2. The Tent of Many Voices was designed as a place for people of different professional backgrounds and cultures to come and share with us their knowledge and wisdom as it relates to the Lewis and Clark expedition. And so we're very happy to have Lucy Vanderburg with us here today. She's going to be talking about Salish language. So without further ado, let's welcome Lucy to our stage.
Thank you. In our language, we would say lemlemch, which is thank you, lemlemch. And this is the Salish language. Like I said, my name is Lucy Vanderburg, and I'm the program manager at the People Center in Pablo, which is 7 miles north of Polson. The People Center is a museum and an education facility and a gift shop. We call it Native Ed. It's the tours that they combine with education. Our mission statement is to educate the public, and the public includes not only the tribal members but non-tribal members about the 3 tribes that reside on what is known as the Flathead Reservation. We have the Salish, and we like to be called the Bitterroot Salish because this is actually our homeland. And somebody made a comment this morning and said, asked me where I was going, and I told them that I was going to Hamilton. They said, "Oh, you're going back to your homeland." And I always feel, I wasn't born here or anything, but I always feel like when I come back to the Bitterroot that it is part of my background. And my father was born in Stevensville, and he was a year old when they were moved to the Jocko area. There are 3 tribes that reside on the reservation, and that's the Bitterroot Salish, the Pend Oreille, and the Kootenai. The Kootenai migrated down from Canada, and like I said, we went from here to there. The Pend Oreille have always been in between Arley and Polson. They've always occupied that land. The Kalispel, some of
A person wearing glasses and a teal shirt stands speaking with hand gestures in front of a banner reading Department U.S. Forest Department Bureau. A presentation poster is visible on the left side.
the Spokanes. We've kind of had different tribes that have lived there, but to date we have approximately about 7,000 enrolled members on that. Not all 7,000 live on the reservation. For whatever reason, a lot of people do leave the reservation. I left at one time and came back after about 20 years. To be enrolled, an enrolled member, there's criteria that you have to meet. Either Salish, Kootenai, or Pend Oreille. You have to have at least 1/4 degree of either tribe's degree of blood to be an enrolled member. And there's a lot of direct descendants that aren't enrolled because of the requirement that you have to be 1/4. I consider myself a full-blood Salish. My mom was a full-blood. My dad, like I said, was born here, and through the years of not keeping records, not having that you know, the closest thing we have of the records being kept in this area, people that were born here in Stevensville, in the Bitterroot, are the Jesuit, the fathers. And they didn't start keeping records probably until the late 1800s. My dad was born in 1891, or 1890, I'm sorry. And they never did put a blood degree down for him until the reservation was formed in the Jocko, is actually where the first agency was. And somewhere down the line, he ended up being 7/8. And I could never figure out where that 1/8 went, you know. What is that 1/8? You know, I'd like to know. But nobody, you know, we can't track down our background because there just wasn't any record of anything back beyond like 1890. And so I always wondered, you know, what was that 1/8, you know? So I consider myself a full-blood. And we have, to date, probably...
A person wearing glasses and a teal V-neck shirt stands in front of a banner reading Department U.S. Forest Bureau. They have their hands clasped in front of them, looking downward during a presentation.
A very small amount of full-blood members on the reservation. Probably, I would say, 50 that are full-blood. And the full-bloods are the ones that maintain our language, pass it on. We do a lot of consulting with our elders. The Salish language was an unwritten language at one time. The Jesuits did, you know, they did their version of writing the language after talking, you know, with the Salish. And that was probably the closest thing we had to a written language. Is kind of like a dictionary, vocabulary, word list that the Jesuits put out. And as years went on, you know, the elders became concerned because the language being lost, the younger generations not, because life was changing. A lot of the parents encouraged the students to, you know, like when they go to school, you know, don't be speaking in your language because you need to learn English. And for survival, you know, that makes sense. My mother, who attended the Ursuline Academy in St. Ignatius, she recalled a lot of the experiences that she had there. I mean, they weren't allowed to speak their language, so that was, and that was in the early 1900s, and that was kind of when our language became threatened. Parents, grandparents were encouraging everyone to not speak their language, stay in, you know, learn as much English as you can. Now, when they were brought to like the Ursuline Academy or the Jesuit, the fathers also had a school that a lot of the Indian children were brought to, and they stayed there. They just stayed there for 9 months. The hair was cut. You know, I mean, they pretty much really discouraged them from being themselves and living their own lifestyle. And when they would go home in the summertime.
A person in a teal V-neck shirt and glasses stands at a presentation, gesturing with their hands. Behind them is a poster board with a yellow-green document or chart displayed, and partial text visible reading part May. Forest, Erpment, and Berea.
For 3 months, and then they would, you know, be able to, because Salish is, in my home, Salish was my first language until I got older, probably 4 or 5, and I was the youngest child of a large family. So I learned English probably when I was about 3 or 4, but when I was little, Salish was my first language because it was spoke in the home daily. I mean, that was our lifestyle. So I have an advantage over the learners now that we're trying to bring back the language and teach. The language is being taught throughout the reservation now, because there isn't that many fluent speakers. I feel fortunate that my parents did. They spoke the language in the home all the time. They encourage education, but they also encouraged us to keep our heritage alive and to keep our culture. And I feel very fortunate that I have this ability to teach my children, my grandchildren, other tribal members, and I've taught Salish language for probably the last 30 years. I was hired by they formed in St. Ignatius. They formed it was called at the time the Flathead Culture Committee, and over the years it became Salish and Pend Oreille Culture Committee. And one of the things that we found out right at the beginning was the elders wanted to they wanted to document as much as they could, tell us about history, families, everything was done in the language. So we started interviewing large groups of the elders in 1978. And tape recording them. Way back then, it was a little cassette. We didn't have the equipment that we have now. We could have took videos of them. We just didn't do that in '78. Plus, we had a limited budget.
A person wearing glasses and a teal V-neck shirt stands at a microphone in front of a dark banner with partial text visible. They have their hands clasped in front of them while speaking.
And, we were totally supported by the elders. The elders could see the concern back then that, okay, if we don't document all this information, it's going to be lost. So that was our job, and I worked for the Culture Committee for 19 years, and then I moved up to Polson and went to work for the People Center. Our job was to get large groups of elders together and just turn the tape recorders. We had them different places around a big conference room, and just turn it on and let them talk in their language. In '78, there was still, and it was the elders. You still heard the language a lot. Now it's very rare to hear the language openly. To hear the language spoken, you have to go to the Salish Kootenai College to a language class, or go to a elders advisory council meeting to hear the language. It's just not, you don't hear it every day. I mean, when I was a child growing up, if we were at the local grocery store in Arlee or at the post office and people were coming in, I mean, you heard the language all the time. That's the big advantage that the fluent speakers have now over the learners. I mean, the learners have a real disadvantage because they don't hear it every day. They have to hear it from tapes, they have to hear it from language teachers. And like I said, it wasn't a written language up until 1978. We had no alphabet. Nothing was really, I mean, you couldn't write it down. And after we had interviewed all these elders for so long, we knew that we had to translate these tapes, and trying to put a Salish word using the English alphabet became complicated, because we have sounds that come from down in your throat, and the English just doesn't, I mean, how can you say, well, even a simple one like it's just that's a sound in our alphabet. So we're trying to put T and L together, and it became real obvious that we needed to work with a linguist. So what we did.
A person wearing glasses and a teal V-neck shirt stands indoors, speaking. Behind them is a dark banner with partial white text visible, and wooden shelving with various objects.
We worked with a linguist out of British Columbia, and his name was Larry Miller, a very young man who was very patient with us. Stayed at in St. Ignatius. Listened to the elders, listened to the culture committee in everyday conversation, and it was decided that we would use the International Phonetic Alphabet. We ended up with 43 sounds, 43 letters. We had the same vowels as English. English is A, E, I, O, and U. We use the same letter, but instead of A, E, I, O, and U, it's A, E, I, U, and O. Some of the elders' concern was the language was being shortened. We have a lot of words that we say, like good day is khast schalchalt. And if you talk to some people, they cut off parts of it, and it becomes khast schalcha. So when you're teaching the language, we try to teach the whole version of a word, and sometimes it gets to be a pretty long word. And there's also, between the Salish and the Pondere, the Salish and Pondere speak the same language, but they have community differences. From like Arlie and Ronan, St. Ignatius, there might be the dialect differences. We understand each other, but it's just, okay, we know that, okay, this is how you say it in Ronan, this is how the Pondere say it, this is how you say it in Arlie, you know. And when I was a teacher at the college, I tried to teach all three differences, if there was 3 or 2 or 4, because they're all right. They're not, you can't say this one's wrong, because somebody might have had grown up with talking in North Crow of Ronan. This is how their family talked, and you can't say they're wrong because they have a little bit of a difference. It's just like in the English. I mean, throughout the United States, everybody says things a little different. We do have an immersion school that started in Arlie, and it's with the real small, from probably a year old to age 3. They have an enrollment of 30, and they are doing, I think, a fantastic job.
A person wearing glasses and a blue V-neck shirt stands at a podium with a microphone, gesturing while speaking. Behind them is a blue banner with partial text visible reading ENT of SD Serve and NT of Ed.
Instilling the language and the sounds and the everyday cultural lifestyles into the small children, because they're not getting it at home, so the school has taken it upon themselves to do this, and I think it's been in operation for probably about 5 years now. And once they leave the immersion school and they go into Head Start at age 4, it's like it's picked up from where they left off. Head Start will pick up the language instruction from there, and once they go into kindergarten or the first grade, all the public schools on the reservation have the Salish, Ponderay, and the Kootenai language in the schools. Arlee has one of the biggest, probably the biggest involvement. They have Arlee has always accepted the Salish language as a language, and they get it from kindergarten through high school. And once they get through high school, if they choose to go to the Salish Kootenai College, they can continue to pursue that language instruction there. The college does a wonderful job of teaching, hiring teachers there. Polson School is the only school on the reservation that does the Kootenai. The Kootenai occupy the northern part of the reservation, Elmo, Dayton, Big Arm, and Polson. So it makes me feel good when I go to the schools and I hear they're having, I'll sit in on some of the Kootenai classes and sit in on some of the Salish classes, and we are making strides. We are making steps towards preserving and reintroducing the language throughout the reservation. It's, my children, I have 3 girls who have married, and they're not around as much as I would like, I guess. But they learned the most, and I'm ashamed to say this, they learned the most language from my mom, because I spent a lot of time with her. She had a cultural camp that she ran for 3 months every summer, and they just stayed there the whole 3 months. And they learned probably the most from her. But my grandkids, I have 7 grandkids, and I try to...
A person wearing glasses and a teal V-neck shirt gestures while speaking at what appears to be an indoor event. Behind them is a dark banner with partial text visible, including Ment of AG. Rest Service. Eind of Ejik and Reo of Ini.
To instill in them the urgency, I call it an urgency, to remember your language, remember your heritage, remember your background. And it helps that all the other schools are doing this. This past spring I was involved with the college with a group of 9, and we'd always heard about the Maori in New Zealand that had this excellent program, immersion program, that they totally turned around. Their language was like ours, that was being pushed aside, it was being lost, and they completely turned that around with the immersion school, like the one that we have started in Arlee. We only have the one, but I was fortunate to go to New Zealand in March, and we stayed there for 6 weeks, and we worked with all the different schools, the daycares, the Head Starts, the junior high, the high school, and the colleges, the universities in New Zealand. And we came away with a lot of material, a lot of curriculum that we can incorporate into our efforts to preserve our language. I enjoyed myself there. It was a little too hot for me, but it was good to see little children speaking their language all the time. I mean, it was like I remember how my language used to be. So we're on the road to maybe getting another immersion school in a different location, and if we can just work together as a tribes and work together as communities, we can get that language back. Like I said, we have 43 sounds. I call them sounds because some of them have little extra things along them. Teaching the language is a way of teaching your culture. If you know your culture, you're going to know your language. And to know your culture, you have to learn the language. All these tapes that we did over the years is all in Salish. And if you want to listen to those tapes, and if it's going to make any sense to you, you have to know your language. They've been translated, and the Culture Committee is putting out different, I don't know how many volumes, but they just, one was just...
A person wearing glasses and a teal V-neck shirt stands at a podium, hands clasped, facing slightly to the side. Behind them is a black banner with partial text visible, including Department of AG and Rest Service.
Released about a month ago, and it was on Lewis and Clark encounters in the Bitterroot, and it was a volume by itself. All interviews of elders that have passed on, and they have a place names, all of these place names throughout the Bitterroot Valley in Salish. And sometimes I would like to go back to the Culture Committee and work with them because they're really struggling to keep that preservation. And but that's what we're doing at the People Center too. This lady that came with me today, she's our education director, and we hold classes at the People Center, language, history, stories, storytelling. Plus, we have the museum. We have a small museum. It's not a large one. We hope to expand on that someday. We're limited in our language teachers. We have a lot of the students that are now in college that have taken the language throughout the years are very capable of teaching the language, but are hesitant because they're put on the spot. You know, when you're teaching something, you're kind of put on the spot, and the students expect you to not make any mistakes. You know, and these new learners, they're fluent, I guess, passive fluent. They understand the language. They can do the basics, but are afraid to get into a conversation with an elder, because the elder will stay in the language, and you should too. But it's sometimes it's hard. Being a fluent speaker and a teacher myself, sometimes it's hard to stay in the Salish language, because there's so many things that we don't have words for, and that's what the Elders Advisory Council, which we have one on the south end and one on the north end. We don't have words for microphone, camera, you know, the modern things. So it's up to the elders to...
A person wearing glasses and a teal V-neck shirt stands at a presentation, with a research poster visible to the left and a banner reading Department U.S. Forest Bureau partially visible to the right.
Sit down with a list and try to come up with something that describes a microphone, describes a video camera, and just office equipment, you know. I mean, because we didn't have those things when the language was, so it's up to the elders to try to find something that describes that. Basically what we're doing is making up words. I don't want to be accused of making up any words, so I let the elders do that. And they've come up with a long, it's like an ongoing thing. Every time something new comes out, the kids now want to know, how do you say Xbox, And so we have to describe this to the elders. And then they come up with, so, the kids always want to know, how do you say this? How do you say that? And sometimes it's pretty challenging to come up with something that everybody's in agreement with, I guess. So the language is one of the things that the whole tribal membership struggles with, but yet is in support of within all the schools and the teachers. We work with the state to certify language speakers. If you go to college and you have to take a foreign language, we're trying to get it so Salish is that foreign language, which is it always confuses the elders because they're saying, well, it's not a foreign language. To the like the University in Montana, to them it is a foreign language. So then we have to certify our own learners in our language to qualify for that foreign language requirement. The council, the tribal council, they're very supportive of the elders, the language teachers, the schools. Supportive, I guess, in you're doing a good job kind of thing, verbally. We don't always get the support, and which is like with anything, any business.
A person in a teal V-neck shirt and glasses stands at a presentation, gesturing while speaking. Behind them is a display board showing maps and geographical information with text reading in Clark, a legacy of science.
Your budget is limited. There's only so much you can do, and we try to fundraise, we try to get grants, and it's an ongoing thing. I mean, it's like every day you get up and you're trying to think of, okay, what can I do today to make this more simple for the schools and the teachers in the schools on the reservation throughout, all the way to Dayton. Dayton has a real small school. They have like 9 students. In September, every third week in September, we have our Native American Awareness Week. And schools, all the schools on the reservation will come to the People Center. The People Center has been designated as the place to, because it's big enough that we can accommodate probably, we've had up to 400 kids at one time. And we go through stations, whether it's native games, history, language, and they can also take tours of the museum. I did bring along some books of our language, the alphabet. It kind of describes it. I didn't make copies, but if you're interested, we do have our website for the People Center and the college, and just, if you wanted to call anywhere, the Culture Committee or the People Center, we'd be more than happy to help. We have a tribal member who's a teacher at Corvallis, and he always brings us a busload of kids to the People Center, and we get people from the Bitterroot Valley a lot just coming to there. And I have a good staff who's they don't have to be told every day what to do, so they just kind of do it, and I'm happy for that. If you have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions for Lucy? Oh, one back here, just a sec. Let me get the microphone so everyone can hear.
I just wanted to ask you if you are related to Agnes Vanderburg.
Agnes was my mother.
I have a picture after you're done to show you that I took of her in Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Wow.
A person in a blue shirt and glasses stands beside a presentation board showing maps and green imagery. They hold their hands clasped in front of them while facing the camera in what appears to be an indoor presentation space.
Any other questions? Up here, just a sec. This gentleman in the...
Is there any other language in the world that is close to the Salish language? Like Spanish and Italian is close. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Some of the linguists that we worked with Larry Miller, and then we worked with Anthony Mattina at the university, and then Sally Thompson from Pennsylvania, and Steve Eggerstall from Hawaii. Now Steve tells me that the linguistic part of like the sounds that we make is a lot like Russian. So I don't know. We have a lot of words that come from here, and then they move down. Like the chest chalcha, it's it's almost like clearing your throat. It's a sound that's made down here, chest, which is good. And we have some of the others like and we ended up with 43 sounds, and we could probably have more, according to one of the linguists. He wanted to add the pharyngeals in, but okay, 43 is enough, you know. Let's just stick with those.
Question over here.
Can you, in Salish, count slowly 1 through 10, and can you recite the months of the year?
Okay. Nku, it has a glottal stop at the end. I mean, you're actually cutting off the nku. Esel, chesle, mus, til, dakan, sisper, heenam, chanut, open. And that's 1 through 10. And once you learn 1 through 10, you pretty much got it made. Because what you do after you get past 10 is you take 10 and then you just start over. 10 and 1 is 11. Upunesh and ku. So you got 11. So learn 1 through 10 and you can kind of figure it out. The months of the year, January is stapsche, spqane. We put spqane at the end of the first sound, or the first.
A person wearing glasses and a teal shirt stands beside a display board titled Lewis and Clark, A Legacy of Science, gesturing while speaking. Maps and images are visible on the board behind them.
Word, because that means month. Stapsche, spqane is how do I explain this? The new year, the beginning, they didn't go by years back then, they went by seasons, but it came out that January is the beginning of the winter season, the winter months. February is Chkoskan Spqane, and that means that's just the coldest month. March is Kosich, Spqane, Kosich, and that's the literal translation is the month of the geese. When the geese are blind whichever way they go, I don't know. April is Stiatlumen Spqani. Stiatlumen is the flower, the buttercup. And it's a lot of the seasons went by flowers, trees, animals. June is the month of the camas, the bulb, which we still gather today, and that's I just lost it. Itwe Spqani. But that, after it's cooked, it's called itwe. And I always tell my students to remember the word itwe is you can eat it, and it actually has the very beginning is kind of like eat after it's baked, and you could eat it. July is the celebration month after. If you want to look at January, February, March, April, and May, June is right in the middle. July is the time to, after gathering the harvesting the herbs and the berries. In July was a time to celebrate, a time to, I guess, relax until you started the process again for the fall and the winter. July was, and now they call it the Chulai Spqani, Chulay. August.
A person in a teal shirt and glasses stands beside a display board showing maps and an aerial photograph. They appear to be giving a presentation in an indoor setting.
Shah Spqani, and that was huckleberry. Stasha. That was when a lot of the people went out and picked huckleberries, chokecherries, all the berries that are ripe then. September was Lola Spqani. Lola. And that's chokecherry. After the first frost is when they picked the chokecherries and they're pounded and kept dried and kept. A lot of the foods was dried. The drying process was, after they're completely dried, you can put them away and they'll last, they just like they do now with dehydrated foods. October is Sleep Spqani, and that means the hunting month, hunting for the big game, the elk, moose, deer, and I'm sure a long time ago the buffalo. It was the sheep. It was all the hunting. November was the trapping month. It's Atsami Spqani. That was the trapping month when they trapped for the furs, the beaver, the weasel, the mink, muskrat. And December is there's controversy on that, and one part, like I said, the community differences. December was the squdlu, the storytelling, because we don't tell any of our creation stories until the snow. Well, like they say, until the snow flies, we don't tell any creation stories. And by creation stories, I mean the stories that we have about the Bitter Valley and the coyote. The coyote was instrumental in a lot of our creation stories, and that was why they called it the month of storytelling.
Well, thank you, Lucy. That was great.
Thanks.
Thanks for that question. That was a good question.
All right. Thank you.
If anyone has any other questions for Lucy, I'm sure she'll be around here for a little bit, and you can come up and ask them personally to her. We're going to.
The frame shows horizontal colored bars, green, blue, and gray stripes, against a black background, appearing as a loading or progress indicator or visual glitch in the video footage.